Hey, it's Dave. Welcome to my channel, My Yard Sale. Hey, today I want to talk a little bit about the process of going through prediabetes, diabetes, metabolic issue, and insulin resistance, what it looks like, what it feels like, and ways that and different things that I experienced along the way that I hope other people will be able to recognize and avoid all the difficulty and issues that I've had to deal with, and probably a lot of other people have had to deal with. So when you become pre-diabetic or diabetic, there are a couple ways that people will notice that or figure that out. One is you go to a doctor and you get a blood test, an A1C blood test, that your number will be above or below pre-diabetic or diabetic, and then you get diagnosed or you get diagnosed that you're diabetic or pre-diabetic. And at that point, you can make some changes to reduce that number, or quite frankly, you can not make changes because it doesn't affect your life so much that it would scare you to make changes. You're not going to change your diet because you're diagnosed pre-diabetic or diabetic for the most part. You may make some slight changes, but you're not going to like only eat meat from then on because there's just no reason to. So that was one way, is you get diagnosed through a blood test with prediabetes or diabetes. Another way is you can start noticing quite a bit of weight gain, because when you become diabetic, your body's packing away all that glucose and all those carbs in fat cells, and you do become more fatty. And it's in specific areas like around your waist, at the bottoms of your arms. I don't know about your legs. I don't know about that. Probably around your legs, I guess. Um, but that's areas where you're gonna start gaining some weight, and you would notice to yourself, wow, I'm gaining a lot of weight all of a sudden. I was always this weight, and all of a sudden I'm 35 pounds more. That could be an indication that you may be diabetic or pre-diabetic or move to that next level. And at that point, I would strongly suggest that you go to the doctor and get an A1C blood test to make sure that you're okay, and maybe something else, or if it is prediabetes or diabetes. So once you get that diagnosis, then you can start making some changes to hopefully reverse that whole diabetes and prediabetes um, level and get back to normal levels. And at that point, your diet and your exercise and the things that you're doing will help get rid of that extra weight. It's funny. I tell friends, yeah, I had a bout with diabetes, prediabetes, and the first thing they always ask me is, "Oh my gosh, how much weight did you gain?" But for me, that was totally different because I gained weight so fast, and I probably had super high sugar levels that almost immediately after I started gaining weight, my body became insulin resistant. My insulin sensitivity went way down, and I started losing weight. So I gained a little tiny bit of weight, and then almost immediately right behind it, I was losing weight. And I lost weight my entire process through the whole diabetic process. So I gained up a couple pounds, and it wasn't a lot. It was like 25, 30 pounds maybe. I've weighed 129 to 130 pounds forever since I was a teenager. And then at one point I did weigh like 160, 170 pounds. I was working out a lot. And I can think back now and I can remember that I had gained quite a bit of weight around my waist, and I wasn't really gaining a lot of muscle at that point. So my process of going from a little bit fatty to super skinny, insulin resistant, was pretty quick. And as soon as I started becoming insulin resistant, that's when my body weight went from 180 down to 150 pounds almost, I'm going to say almost overnight, it felt like. And that was way before, like, it's not even months. That was years before I started noticing any kind of neuropathy issues or any kind of neural issues, any problems with my nerves. I started noticing that much later. So there's two indicators, two steps that anybody can recognize and try to avoid this longer term metabolic issue thing that I'm dealing with, and it's a nightmare. I got to be honest, and I got to just say that if you can catch this thing way before to the process that I got, or to the point where I got, it is so much easier to turn it around and make it easier and not have to deal with all the stuff that I have to deal with. Anyways, so once you become insulin resistant, or your insulin sensitivity goes way down, then you lose an immense amount of weight, like a scary kind of weight. Like you go from weighing whatever you weighed to weighing 60% less, 50% less. I mean, I went from 180 pounds within a matter of 3 to 5 years, let's just say, to 130 pounds. And in the last cycle of that I went through in the last couple of years, I was down to 100 pounds. I'm 6 foot. I was 100 pounds. So you can I could have probably lost even more weight if I would have kept eating the way I was eating. When I say eating the way that I was eating, I wasn't the kind of person that would eat terrible. I just definitely did not eat great. I ate a lot of rice, and I ate a lot of carbs. I loved cupcakes. I loved milkshakes. I loved all the delicious stuff that everybody loves. It was just part of my diet as a regular diet. I ate a lot of rice, ate a lot of noodles, and it all just stacked up and got worse and worse and worse. And actually, back then, I drank a lot too. I did drink a lot of alcohol too. And even though I worked out, I wasn't gaining any muscle at all. Like I would work out, I don't know, 2 hours in a day, 3 to 5 days a week, and I was not gaining any muscle. I was very skinny. And quite frankly, I think my whole family was eating terribly. My whole family was working out pretty hard and not gaining any muscle. So that would have been another indicator that I would have, if I went back and saw it again, or if I knew somebody that was going through this, I'd say, hey, this sounds kind of familiar. So if you work out, you don't gain muscle, you're still continuing to lose weight or just not gaining any muscle, that would also be an indication of insulin resistance and that next step beyond being diagnosed with prediabetes and diabetes. And these are all times I believe that are reversible. Up to that point, it's very reversible. But then I had to take it to the next level. I kept eating garbage. And by eating garbage, I mean I was a Pop-Tart king. I loved Lucky Charms. I loved breakfast cereal. I loved ice cream. And I wouldn't eat that stuff as dinner, but I would eat it extremely regularly. Like they knew at Walmart exactly what cereals that I liked, because they would, as soon as I logged in to buy something, they would tee it up. Hey, don't forget your Lucky Charms, buddy. Because I always ordered Lucky Charms. I always had 2 or 3 boxes of Pop-Tarts in the house at any given time because, oh, geez, if I ran out, what the heck? What would I do? And then even worse than that, I would drink a couple cups of coffee or even a pot of coffee every day that I would eat a lot of sugar in. So I ate tons of sugar. So you go from prediabetes to diabetes where you're gaining weight. Then you get to insulin resistance, metabolic issues where you lose a lot of weight. And the next part is the terrifying part. Shortly after you become insulin resistant, if you don't turn that around at that point, you just keep pushing it, going and going and going, which I did. I was going through some things in my life that I'll eat Lucky Charms all day long instead of dealing with what I was dealing with. But then the next thing you know, you're dealing with retinopathy, neuropathy, and different kinds of nerve issues that are quite unpleasant. Again, not discomfort, not uncomfortable or not painful, but definitely not, it doesn't make life any easier. And as you go through that process of nerve response or nerve issue, I'm finding now that it also affects the muscles that you still have left and the ability of like balance and all these other things that are driven in by nerves becomes more difficult. So this is that next step. You go from prediabetes to diabetes, then you go to insulin resistance, and then you go to this whole thing with nerve issues, retinopathy, and just neuropathy in general, which neuropathy can be in your legs, it can be in your stomach, it can be in your feet, in your hands, it can be anywhere in your body. You can have retinopathy, or you can have neuropathy in your scalp, I guess. Actually, I think the neuropathy or the insulin resistance can affect your brain. A lot of times that can affect your mental capabilities. Mental clarity is what a lot of people like to call it. And it's funny because I do remember a time where I could literally remember every baseball card that I owned. I could remember all the songs on every album that I owned. I remembered everybody's name when I met them, where we hung out. I remembered like everything about so many things. And then I can remember at one point just thinking, what was this person's name again? I cannot remember this person's name again. And I had to go into my phone and look it up because I couldn't remember this person's name. And that was mental clarity that I was dealing with issues. But that is the step of insulin resistance that becomes a much longer term issue. And the longer that goes on, the harder it is to reverse it. It may take like 5 to 10 years to get to that point. And all along the way, there's these indicators that I talked about earlier that this can all be turned around and made it so it's not like so difficult to turn around. And of course, I didn't do that. I somehow took this all the way to the end, to the point where now I'm telling my story to hopefully help other people avoid what I'm dealing with now. I don't want people to have to get to this point. And if they do get to this point, I'm hoping that they will have watched this video and they'll think, oh, that was what he was talking about, is when, that happened, and now it makes sense. So this step is the part where your body is not using insulin correctly, and the nerves. I don't know if the nerves die or if they just stop working right or what, but all of a sudden, like, your nerves don't work right, and that makes it hard to walk. That can make it hard to see. That makes it hard to do dishes. It makes it hard to do laundry. It makes it impossible. It's hard to put a shirt on when you can't feel your fingers. Like everything that you would do with your fingers, if you can't do it with a pair of thick winter gloves on, then you're not going to do it with neuropathy. Trying to not get to the point of having neuropathy is extremely important. And as it first starts to come on, the faster you can turn that thing around, the better it is. Because going too far just makes life not impossible, but extremely difficult. So again, prediabetes and diabetes, you're going to gain some weight. Insulin resistance, which is kind of the next step after that prediabetes and diabetes, that's when a person would lose a lot of weight. That's when you get to that point of like skinny diabetes, and where it's difficult to gain weight. And it's pretty terrifying, actually. And I think that's the point when people will lose their balance. They have very low bone mass. They have very low bone structures. And it's easy to hurt yourself. You can break legs. You can break knees. You can break bones. You have to be very careful. Anyways, I wanted to just put this up so that if anybody was going through this process, at least they would have some kind of a map of what's next, or hopefully what's not next. Hopefully this will keep people from getting to that next step, and they'll recognize it and avoid it. Because trust me, avoiding this, especially in the long run, is absolutely the most important thing ever. Because I can't even imagine if I didn't recognize this a year and a half, 2 years ago, and I just kept going. I don't know that I would have stopped, and I don't know what would have happened. I don't know what the next step is. I'm afraid to think of what the next step was, considering the fact is I thought the next step was death. And it could have been. I don't even know. But so I'm actually in the process. I've gone through this whole process that I just noted out, and I'm in the process now of dialing it back and reversing it, and I'm starting to feel like my insulin resistance is extremely low. I feel like my A1C is extremely low. I feel like my blood sugars are very low. I'm starting to get some muscle and bone mass back, and I actually am feeling like I'm starting to get some of my nerve growth back. And I'm hoping in the next month, if I'm hoping to get on this channel and talk about how I was right, and yes, my nerves are starting to grow back, and explain the reasons how and why. I can feel it, and that's what I'm hoping. And I feel like that's coming. I feel like that is coming. Anyways, I hope this is an interesting post, and I hope that you're not going through this process. And if you are, hopefully you're way back in the very beginning, and this has helped you understand a little bit more of what's actually going on and what the next steps will look like if you don't make changes, and hopefully what the next steps might look like if you do make the changes. And the changes, the lucky thing is, it's all just diets. It's all diet. And it's not diet as in not eating, it's eating the right stuff. You can eat as much as you want, you just need to eat the right stuff. And I posted about this the other day on exactly what treats and what to eat. And if you're interested in going back and looking that up, please do. And if there's any questions, do me a favor, leave those questions below. I'd be more than happy to answer all these questions. Any questions, any comments. I would love to hear any comments. And please like this post, and please follow if you're not following, and or subscribe if you're not subscribing. And if you are subscribed, man, I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Gives me the purpose to continue to tell my story and hopefully help some other people out. Hey, I hope you're having a great day. Thank you. Bye-bye.